Hello and oh, hang on. Is that better?
Much better.
I didn't have my microphone next to me. Hello and welcome to Catholic Unscripted. I'm Katherine Bennett.
I'm Gavin Ashenden.
Without Mark Lambert, but we'll be back with him soon. We wanted to meet today, Gavin, and discuss the Synod press conference which took place yesterday, and in which a Dutch delegate addressed questions to Father Timothy Radcliffe, just recently nominated a cardinal by Pope Francis, and Sister Natalie, French sister, and a couple of others, but we want to focus particularly on their answers. So we'll just play that clip now for you to see, and then I'll come to you, Gavin, for your comments on that.
Very much. Hendro Munsterman, Nederlands Dagblad, Dutch daily newspaper. Question for Father Timothy and for Sister Natalie, if it's possible. So we understood now that, first of all, the question of the female diaconate has been moved from the Synod table to a study group, and now it's moved from there again to we don't know where. Is it now completely out of the synodal process? Is that what's happening? This is my first question, and then a more personal question. I have two daughters. They are 21 and 18 years old. They're French, so they're not Dutch. No danger there. I know all the theology behind the exclusion of women of the priesthood, diaconate, etc. Ordinatio Sacerdotalis, I know Hans Rossumwelt, but I'm not able to explain it anymore. For them, this exclusion is standing between, this exclusion by the church is standing between Christ and them. What should I tell them? Can you give me some advice as a spiritual leader that you are? They feel like if the church is treating them as second-class citizens, because the highest positions will always be in between the hands of men. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
I don't think often that we solve these problems by what we say, but about how we live. And I think a lot depends upon what you think are the highest positions. Among the highest positions in the church are the doctors of the church, those who teach us. And many of them are women. Beginning with Teresa of Avila, Catherine of Siena, of course. Among the greatest teachers in our church are women. And what we are trying to transmit is a teaching. So I think it's a very clericalist point of view to think that what really matters is who is the priest. I didn't grow up with that point of view, and I think that's a relatively modern one. So I think you have to live with your daughters. They're very lucky, I'm sure, to have a Dutch father, to live with them as people who see what is fundamental of the teachings and the sacraments. That's what grounds us. I never, as a child, imagined that the priest came between me and the Eucharist. It would be a very odd thing to think and feel.
Yes, I will draw for also, I agree with what said Brother Timothy, and I think it's very, very important how we look at the church. And it's about this new imagination. You have already, for instance, women president of a Catholic university, and many in the United States. It's a very, very important role. It's a woman who is the president of the International Federation of Catholic University. You have women as principal, as chancellors. We have at least 2 women chancellors of their diocese in the Synod Hall. Women as president of the Caritas. I can testimony in France. A few years ago, we had the first woman president of the Caritas France. She had a very strong voice in front of the bishop, talking to them, and also in the civil society. So I think it's very important to help all especially the young girls and young women, to highlight that the church is wide, with many different kind of church organizations, and there are already many, many ways to foster women leadership. And I give another example also from France. Now, a few years ago, one bishop started a new model of governance, having not only a vicar general, that has to be a priest, it's a canon law, but he appointed along the vicar general a woman as general delegate. That means the core governance is the bishop, the vicar general, and this woman. Now, 15 bishops have done that in France. It is spreading. And a few days ago, because one of the bishops I know well was here with his priests and deacons, and he told me, I have appointed a woman general delegate to work with me and my vicar general, because as a bishop now in our situation in France, in this society, in this church, I can't imagine leading a diocese just as a bishop. So you have many examples like this that we need, and I hope the media could help also to highlight, because there is still a lot.
So we saw there Father Timothy Radcliffe's answer first. What did you make of that?
Oh, Katherine, I was really surprised and cheered up, because I've been somebody who's been quite critical of Father Radcliffe for some time. And he's what's the kind of polite language doesn't really do justice to him. But what I was surprised at and wanted to compliment him for was his reply, because what we have here is a secular Dutchman saying, my secular feminist daughters are cross with the church. They've bought into secular power play, and they're really cross because they can't be given the priesthood by the church. And they're getting the hump, and we're all sulking. And unless you can give us a nice example, we're not going to play as Christians and Catholics anymore. So that was it's a piece of emotional blackmail. And there's what's difficult about this is there's not the remotest sense that the man asking the question thinks there's anything wrong with him or his daughters. He hasn't got the faintest sense that they're sub-catechized or they've bought into secular culture. They're just assuming that there's a kind of self-righteousness about their critique. We're right, and you people up there on the platform are wrong. Now apologize and do something for it. So I liked what Radcliffe said straight away. He said, well, look, he said, first of all, I think your daughters and you are a little bit involved in a degree of clericalism. Why do you think that the priesthood is so all important? Let me give you an example. I'm a Dominican. One of the things Dominicans do is they teach the faith. History is littered with the most amazing women who teach the faith in the most extraordinary way. Take Teresa of Avila. There's nothing to stop any woman becoming a doctor of the church, and all credit to them. So, would you not consider that as an avenue? And that wasn't the answer the man wanted, of course, but it was an answer. Then the sister Natalie said, well, actually, I'm involved in education, and did you not know that there are a number of women running universities as chancellors? And did you not know that there are a large number of bishops incorporating women into their, if you like, their senior management structure? They don't want to run the diocese without a woman's voice to hand. And actually, women are therefore operating in the church at levels of serious power and influence. Now, there were two other voices, both in Italian, and I can grasp after Italian, but not well enough. But all this was in the context of Robert Nugent, who gave a commentary on it. And what I just loved what he then did, because he effectively said, but what's this all for? This is all for us to become like Christ. It's about theosis. It's about Christ being formed in us. There's no point in having priests or doctors or administrators or bishops if the end result is that you yourself are not becoming more like Christ. And I particularly feel this because I experienced pseudo-episcopacy and pseudo-presbytership as an Anglican. And one of the things I really like is I like being a lay Catholic. I really love it. There's a burden lifted off me that allows me to say my prayers and to follow Jesus, to receive the sacraments and to love the church without levels of responsibility that actually are quite difficult to balance with a perpetual hunger for the Spirit. So Robert Nugent was saying is it's the hunger of the heart that's most important. And what we're surrounded by is people who simply can't free themselves from power issues and ego issues and status issues. which are inimical to being a Christian. So forget the theology of sex for the moment, though there's a great deal of it, and try and gain some perspective about why you're a Christian, why you're a Catholic in the first place.
Yeah, so he made the point, are we looking at this with our eyes or with God's eyes? And said how we look, then how do we understand status? I thought Nugent's video is excellent, and we'll link it here for you to go and have a look. But one of the things that the Dutch delegate was saying is, that idea that the church of all institutions, as it were, surely the church would be inclusive, would welcome my daughters. Why would the church, who teaches about including and compassion and kindness and everyone's equal, exclude my daughters? And for that, I'd love to turn, if I may, to Pope Benedict, who in his book Jesus of Nazareth exposed that temptation so brilliantly to push God aside in favour of some other saving power. Are not social problems the primary true yardstick by which redemption has to be measured? Pope Benedict asks. Does someone who fails to measure up to this standard have any right to be called a redeemer? Do you see what he's doing there? He's saying, this is how we look at it. Does anyone who fails to measure up to this standard that I, the human, has imposed, have any right to be called the redeemer? It's through our eyes, isn't it? Marxism quite understandably made this very point to the core of its promise of salvation. It would see to it that no one went hungry anymore, and that the desert would become bread. If you are the Son of God, in the temptation story, what a challenge. And should we not say the same thing to the church? Benedict asks. If you claim to be the church of God, then start by making sure the world has bread. So if you claim to be the church, shouldn't you do this? And that's what the Dutch delegate was saying. That was his approach, exactly, wasn't it? Pope Benedict points out that the choice between Jesus and Barabbas is not accidental. Two messianic figures, he says, two forms of messianic belief, stand in opposition to one another, he writes. Barabbas figures as a sort of alter ego of Jesus, who makes the same claim but understands it in a completely different way. The choice is between a Messiah who promises freedom and a kingdom of one's own, and this mysterious Jesus who proclaims that losing oneself is the way to life. Is it any wonder that the crowds prefer Barabbas? If we had to choose today, Pope Benedict asks, would Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Mary, the son of the Father, have a chance? Do we really know Jesus at all? Do we understand him? Do we not perhaps have to make an effort today, as always, to get to know him all over again? And I think that's so important a thing to reflect on as we're going through this synodal process. To quote Robert Nugent, Robert says, unless you have a synod on theosis, it's just a discussion table that has been decided. Right, okay, here we go. Glasses again. Unless you have a synod on theosis, it's just a discussion table that has been dealing with the same topics, power and sex. A fight for power in the church. Unless I have power, I can't have Christ. It's a crazy idea. It's a crazy understanding of the church. Unless you have a position, you can't have access to Christ. So what he was saying quite rightly, and what Pope Benedict points out, is actually maybe, just maybe, we should start with our own assumptions and question those assumptions rather than approaching the church and saying, well, I'm looking at it from my eyes, and why doesn't it fit? Why doesn't it fit?
I completely agree. I love Benedict's comparison between Jesus and Barabbas. I'd make a further comparison, which I think is along the same lines, between Peter and Judas. Peter had to learn that the way for the kingdom of heaven to come was through the death and resurrection of Christ, which was going to be terrible, not only for Christ, but also for the apostles, who were all going to become martyrs as well. Judas didn't want that. He wanted the way of Barabbas, or something very similar to Barabbas. He wanted a change in the external circumstances of his life and the project. It's very easy to say to God, the most important thing is for you to change my circumstances. But you and I we're having a discussion about Zionism and Jews, and we were looking briefly at St. Paul in Romans. And one of the things that struck me, because it's easier to understand than the Jewish question, is St. Paul saying, look, it's all about the transformation of your mind. You mustn't be conformed to the world. This is about allowing Christ to change you inside, not changing your circumstances outside. There are times when he does change them outside, when we ask him to, but the priority is the inside. It's this life in the Spirit. And the fact is that there are very many people, very many Catholics, who don't really understand what life in the Spirit is and live, if you like, life outside. They live a political, a sociological, a life in the flesh. But the scriptures are full of this distinction and the invitation for us to make the interior journey with Christ a priority.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting parallel as well, to talk about Judas and Peter, allowing Christ to work in us. That involves an effort of the will on our part. And I think what we also see there with Judas and Peter is that both sinners, both turn away, but only one accepts God's love and God's mercy. So it's do we choose? It's not that God withdraws that or turns away from us. It's always, will we accept what's on offer? Will we accept that gift? It's something I think that's been played with in the theme in Les Miserables of Jean Valjean and Javert. We see both who don't behave, that they break the law, they're immoral, and one receives that mercy and the other can't. It's Javert who simply can't receive that mercy and so takes his own life, as Judas did.
I think that's a very helpful way. And the differences between Judas and Peter was that, having been told that he was vocalizing Satan and to get behind him, Peter then says, sorry, I'll change. And then our Lord spent a great deal of time and trouble restoring him after the resurrection. Peter, do you love me? 3 times, so that the denial is and Peter turns and says, Lord, I'll have you on your terms. And that's what I thought didn't happen with that Dutch delegate. He was saying to the church, you need to conform yourself to the terms of my daughters, who are, as it happens, secular French feminists. And you should be very embarrassed if you don't do that. But actually, that's not the church's role. The church's role is always to invite us to follow the apostolic pattern of recognizing that we get it wrong so much. Gosh, I mean, when I think of the ways in which I get things wrong all the time, I could only continue as a disciple of Christ if I was willing to drop on my knees and say, sorry, I fouled up again, both with sin, with stupidity, with pride, with rage. I'm so sorry. Can we turn? Can I? I'm willing to turn. Can you help me turn and start again? But this isn't what you hear as the secular world interrogates the church over sex and power.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key, isn't it? It's falling on our knees before him and trusting in him and trusting that he's created us. He's the author of life. We're not trying to say to the church and to Christ, be it done unto us according to our own word, but by your word. It's that humility, isn't it? I thought it was lovely the way Robert Nugent approached that and said, who knows in God's eyes, the hidden, the unseen, the little person, the person who doesn't have the status. Because what we haven't mentioned is Sister Natalie's answer. And her answer was problematic because she was saying, well, look, women, she didn't go explicitly and say women should be priests, but she did say, look how good it is now. Women are in positions of power in university, and you see more women here and you see more women there. Isn't that wonderful? But it was still playing to that idea of status and power, and the more status we can get and the higher positions in terms of our understanding of high positions, then all the better. And can't we see what moves have been made, and maybe more will be made in the future? But the assumptions are wrong, because as Robert Nugent said, it plays into that idea that is what we need in order to be seen as worthy or of importance to God. And it's the little people, isn't it? He talked about Mother Teresa. It's just that, who knows he said the drug addict at church, the mother in the home that nobody sees. That's important in God's eyes. Yeah, we're all little people.
We're all little people. I like the way in which he said, he compared, for example, an Orthodox monk who wasn't a priest, with some Catholic monks he knows, and he says, "Look, I'm not being anti-Catholic. It's just that I've met a number of Catholic monks, and actually I've been underwhelmed by the love. And I can think particularly of one who said, 'I haven't got time for you,' or 'I haven't got time for this.'" And he said that one of the most moving encounters I've had was with a non-priest Orthodox monk who didn't speak my language and made time for me, and in his whole demeanor treated me as if I was Christ, as if he had something, he had a duty to give me some love. And I thought, actually, most of us can trace back in our memories encounters that we, the little people, have had, well, with other little people, in fact. And one real difference is whether or not they've had time and compassion. And if you want to be somebody really important in the church, it strikes me one should be generous with our time and compassion to the people God sends us. And you just never know who they are. I remember once when I was 19, I was in Toronto. There was a house church giving witness. The catechism Christians were on the street. They were dancing and singing and talking to people. And I stopped to watch, and one of them came out and talked to me about Jesus and God. And as I've told you endlessly, I was my Dostoevsky reading period, so I was very happy to talk about God. But he actually turned out to be a professor of philosophy at the University of Toronto. But we had a long conversation in which he paid a great deal of attention to me. Now, we didn't get anywhere, but there was a quality of his affectionate attention that had a real impact on me. I don't know who he is. Now, he would never know that I was going to be launched on a Christian journey that would itself not be without some small impact, and that he was playing a part in that. But he treated me, a little person, a long-haired pseudo-English bourgeois hippie. He treated me with kindness and generosity, and as if there was a degree of Christian hospitality required between us. And it really had an effect on me. We're back, I think, to St. Augustine saying God's made us to be vulnerable to this kind of love and attention because it's like the love and attention that he wants to give us. And whenever we encounter it, we feel this is authentic and in some kind of way building a bridge between me and God. So far more important than being a priest or a diocesan chancellor or a professor, although I quite like to be a professor and doctor of the church, far more important is to be generous as a little person with the time and attention that God gives us to bestow on one another.
Yeah, it's true. The people I think about in my own journey, one person I speak about very often was a lay Catholic husband who blew me away by how, I don't think, because I grew up in the 90s and it's lad culture, picking up girls, meat markets, and that was a move from the mother-in-law jokes in the years before. And here I met a young, handsome, ordinary, nice bloke, wasn't a weirdo or just an ordinary chap who loved his wife, took his vocation seriously, loved his children, and loved God, and just wanted to live as a father and a husband. He doesn't broadcast on channels. He's not a priest. He's not a bishop. He was just an ordinary father and husband. And I was actually blown away by that witness. And Robert Nugent talked about experience. He said some priests are busy teaching. Sorry, you can't come in. I'm busy. I've got an important lecture to give, or I've got somewhere to be, and I've got a book to write. And they're all wonderfully intellectual, and that's great. But if they're not talking about how we can, that theosis, about our relationship with Christ, drawing us closer to Christ, then what's it about? What's it for? It has to be that, and that witness of that experience in our lives about how we are moving in our relationship closer to Christ, striving for sanctity, doing what we can to allow him to help us by his grace to become the people he's created us to be. It has to be about that. It can't be about these discussions around who has what positions in the eyes of the world.
I couldn't agree more. I just go back to one really important moment when I was at university. So I was quite a senior academic in some ways, and my cleaner, who was a bit of a gypsy, who used to get drunk on Guinness in the bar. She's quite sweet, bit of a lush, and but she kept an eye out for me. And so she knocked on my door at 5:05 on a Friday afternoon and said, "Gavin, there's someone who wants to see you." And I said, "Well, have they made an appointment?" "No, they haven't." I said, well, look, I'm going home in 10 minutes. It's the end of a week. I'm tired. Make an appointment for next week. Gavin, I think you should see this one. I said, oh, for goodness sake, Christine, when will these people learn any sense of self-organization? When will they get their diary? When will they? She said, Gavin, you got to see this one. So I said, okay, fine. Now, you don't know how difficult it is to get off campus if you leave after 5:10. So this was a real sacrifice. So in came this woman, and she sat down and said, I'm in permanent pain from a car accident. I was raped 2 years ago. I've decided to kill myself this weekend. I need to come and tell someone why I'm doing it. You're that person. I'm not going to give you my name or any details. I'm not going to give you the slightest opportunity to stop you, but you need to hear me out. So so I did hear her out. As it happened, I was able just to get enough details about the category of the kind of student she was to make some emergency phone calls to administrators who didn't want to stay at their desks and give me the answers, and were absolutely furious. We got enough information, and the police got round there, and they stopped her in the middle of the overdose. And 9 months later, she introduced me to her mother as the man who made her graduation possible. Now, actually, it wasn't the man. It was the cleaner. It was Christine, the cleaner, who said, Gavin, you can't get off campus. You've got to see this one. You've got to be generous with your time and your flexibility. And I, the pompous academic who'd come to the end of a hard week's work, was disinclined to do that. But actually, I didn't know that a physical life depended on it. Now, there are spiritual lives that also depend upon the way. It's not always as dramatic as a would-be suicide, but there are people's souls who depend upon the degree of attention and love we give them. And that's what it is to follow Jesus. It is to be as generous with them as he is with us.
I love that story, and it goes back to the comment I made in our previous video about the little whispers, the whispers behind the visible.
Wife whisperer. Yes.
The wife whisperer. But quite seriously, the whispers behind all the things that are visible. So in a sense, that delegate's question was, why can't my daughters have a visible role?
Right.
Why can't they be seen in these roles that are recognised by others as important? And I think that is only a question we'd ask if we've lost sight of the beauty of the feminine, of the value of the invisible, of the mysterious, which is, I don't want to revisit old ground, and I've spoken about it many times before, but I think
we have to revisit old ground because people don't get it.
Actually, yes, and also people might be seeing us for the first time. If so, do trawl through our videos and pick up hopefully something of value. But I think that that father could have, rather than saying to the church, change to help my daughters, could have had a fruitful conversation with his daughters about what it means to be created in the way that they've been created and what they're called to be. It's not about one vocation being the only vocation, but we are called to different things. And actually, if we fulfill the vocation that we have been created for, that's so beautiful. That's so important. Not only that, it's necessary. And so as long as we're pushing women to be priests, we're drawing them away from the vocations that they've been called to be. And we see the disastrous consequences of that around us.
What really struck me about that was it's too late. It's actually too late for him to have those conversations. Those were conversations he needed to have with them as they were growing up. He needed to have catechized his daughters and to have got them to read the Gospels and understand that when Jesus puts a little child in front of the big burly fisherman and says, forget your status struggles, lads, this is the most important. I'm inverting everything. Pride gets replaced by humility. Strength gets replaced by weakness. Anger gets replaced by forgiveness. Everything is being inverted in this kingdom enterprise. The daughters demanding status didn't know that. And if they didn't know it by that age, it's a real shame. And then I thought, wow, what is more beautiful than your daughter becoming a mother to children who are brought up in the Catholic faith? And actually, if your daughters don't become mothers, would you really want to swap the role of a mother for the role of a church bureaucrat, for an archdeacon? I mean, for a bishop even? Who would want to be a bishop when you could be a mother? Because
and if what they're saying isn't, I want the church bureaucrat but what I want is I want my daughter to have the power to confect the bread and wine, and so that it consecrates it. She can't. She can't have it. Sorry, that's up to God, and that isn't, and the theology on that is pretty sound. So it's never going to happen. So all you must be asking, since that is impossible, and he began by saying, "I understand the theology." I'm not sure he does. No, I'm not sure he does. Is, well, then I want my daughter to have this bureaucratic, powerful position. Yeah. And so you're quite right. How have his daughters got to the point where that's what they think is necessary for them in the church, or to have them access Christ? It's just so. I mean, Robert Nugent said our theology is sick. Our theology is sick at the moment, and we have to keep going, and then someone has to be around for when we start to recover a better theology.
And that's why I love Robert Barron, because he's constantly saying what we need is a new catechesis. We don't need the structures of the church, which have lasted 2,000 years, because that's how the Holy Spirit has developed them. We don't need those to change. What we need is this generation catechized, discipled. That's where the problem. And so if that question showed anything, it was how enormously important it is for Catholic parents to bring up Catholic children in the faith.
Yeah, and what a wonderful thing that is. And congratulations and well done to all those parents doing just that quietly, behind the scenes, unnoticed, uncommented on, probably undervalued too. But my goodness me, thank God for you, and may you continue to do it. And may our young girls start to see that. Well, Gavin, thank you for the conversation. Wonderful as always, and I look forward to meeting with you again and Mark later this week, where we'll be discussing a little bit more of the same around a teaching that Tina Beattie gave to some group of school children, was it?
It was school children. And I also hope, if we have time, and we may not, that one of the things we can do together, the three of us, is to discuss the extraordinarily difficult conversation that Jordan Peterson had with Richard Dawkins. Difficult, because it was like it was like a Dutchman shouting at a Chinaman, and after a while,
that should be easy to decipher. Then
it gave me a headache.
Yeah. Well, we'll come to that down the line. Don't worry. But until then, thanks for watching. Do visit our website, catholicunscripted.com. If you like our conversations and would like to have more news commentary in the form of videos or more written blogs, do pick up a membership at catholicunscripted.com. But for now, thanks for watching. I'm Katherine Bennett.
And I'm Gavin Ashenden, and I want to make an apology for my unconscious racism that involved no disrespect was intended for any Chinaman or Dutchman listening. My apologies.
Thanks, Gav.